Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen, we're making some flaky, sky-high puff pastry. So let's get started. First off, grab a cup of butter, toss it in the freezer, and you want it to be rock hard before we start this recipe. Now, in a large bowl, we're gonna measure out 2 cups of all-purpose flour. That's 240 grams. Puff pastry is such a versatile thing. You can use it for sweet and savory, all kinds of quick tarts. And yes, you can buy it at the grocery store pre-made, but this will taste better and perform better, and it's really not difficult to make. For the barest kiss of sweetness, we're adding 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar. And for a tiny bit of contrast, half a teaspoon of salt. Grab a whisk, and our scale is done for now. Mix this up. This type of puff pastry isn't a fully laminated dough, meaning you're not going to have a sandwich of butter and dough, butter and dough, butter and dough that you're working together, folding and rolling out over and over again. It's more of a rough puff. So much easier, but it gives you a really lovely result. Now it's time to grab your frozen butter out of the freezer. And for this recipe, I'm using a European style butter. That just means it has a higher fat content. There's a little bit less water in there. I think it gives you a better result, and it also kind of looks prettier since it's a darker color. Grab a grater, and we're gonna grate this frozen butter into the flour. As you go, you can kind of give it a little bit of a mix. Just toss it with the flour. Otherwise, you'll have a big clump of butter, and we don't want that. So shred and toss with the flour. Shred and toss with the flour. You can use this technique, by the way, exactly the same, to make pie dough. A lot of times you'll call for butter to be cubed and then worked in by hand. You can do this with frozen butter and just grate the frozen butter into your flour mixture, and it gives you a nice and lovely result too. By the way, if you like my videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's 2 new recipes every single week. If you have a little nub of butter, you can just chop this up, or if you're brave and you know yourself, you can just grate that. More tossing. Repeat that process with your second stick of butter. If things are getting sticky, you can just flour the grater, and that'll help. Puff pastry in one form or another, like having a layered dough with fat, has been around since ancient times, but it was the French in the 17th century who really refined this and gave us the beautiful puff pastries we have today for lovely treats. After you're grating, kind of get the remaining butter out of the inside. Some of it might be more room temp now. If you're using American style butter, which is like regular butter to us, the butter will probably not be as melty and soft, so you'll have less of an issue with this. That's the trade-off for European butter. It's so soft because there's so much fat in it. One final toss. If at any point here you need to stop, like someone rings the doorbell, the kids have a question, or whatever, just take your bowl and pop it into the fridge or freezer so that butter remains cold. You do not want it warming up and getting melty, especially on a warm day. I'm gonna drizzle in my 6 tablespoons of cold water while I mix the dough up. You could use your hands or some kind of utensil if your hands are running really hot. Your goal here is to have kind of a shaggy dough that clumps together and will hold when you squeeze it. So 6 tablespoons of water is your starting point. Then you can add more water, a tablespoon at a time as needed. You really want to add just enough water to hold the dough together, and not too much because that'll change the consistency. A little extra water, a little bit more tossing. When you're mixing, really go to the bottom of your bowl and get some of that flour that's hanging out there. At this point, once things are nicely mixed, grab a handful and squeeze it together. If it holds fairly well, then you know you have the correct amount. Don't just keep mixing and adding water until it looks like a big gloopy mess. This is gonna be a very dry dough that just holds together. Just. To keep things contained, stay in the bowl and just gently knead things together. So use the palm of your hand and press down, give it a mix, and then press down again. You wanna keep as much of the butter intact as possible, so we're not gonna overwork the dough. Now we're gonna plop this onto the counter, kind of squeeze it together. And now we're gonna shape this into a square, probably about an inch thick, 1 to 3/4 inches. And for all my non-US friends, that's about 2.5 centimeters. So 2 to 2.5 centimeters would be great. This looks buttery and delicious. We're gonna wrap this up in plastic and allow this to chill for an hour. It really needs time to rest and firm back up again. It got way too soft while we were working it. So wrap that up tightly in plastic. You do not want this to dry out in the fridge. So much potential in this square of dough. You could do so many things with this. Right now I'm craving like a beautiful asparagus and cheese tart, but it could equally be a beautiful fruit turnover. All right, into the fridge, 1 hour, and we'll be right back with a rolling pin. After chilling for an hour, it's time to unwrap your beautiful cold pastry dough. Lightly flour your working surface. And now we're gonna roll this out into a 1/2 inch thick rectangle. Mind you, there are 4 rolls and folds here, so let's keep track together. This is number 1. It's a good idea to keep flouring as needed so that your dough does not stick. If you fold too little, you won't have enough layers. If you fold too much, you'll have too many and your puff will not be as puffed as you'd like. About a 1/2 inch thick. We're gonna fold this into thirds just like you would a piece of paper you're putting in an envelope. So 1 and 2. That's our first roll and fold. Now we're gonna rotate our dough 90 degrees and do it again. Fold it again. 1, 2, and we're halfway done. Rotate 90 degrees and continue. We're building up beautiful layers. This is my 3rd time, so everyone helps me remember that. 3rd. Another fold. 1, 2, and our last rotation. So this is the 4th go around. To help it kind of come together, I'm just using my rolling pin and tapping. That was my finger. Carefully tap. So we're working the dough a bit here, and what's happening is we're activating the gluten, which is why it's pulling back a little bit. You're seeing it spring a bit. That's to be expected. There will be more chilling and rest time here, and that'll loosen things up and let our dough come to its senses. We did our 4 cycles of rolling and folding. 1 final fold into thirds, just like this, and we're gonna cover it back up. So wrap it again in plastic. We don't want it to dry out. My puff pastry gets popped into the fridge and it chills for at least 2 hours or up to 2 days before using it. Conversely, you could also freeze this for up to 2 months, just thaw it before using. I'm gonna chill this and then show you how to bake it up. Once your puff pastry is chilled and ready to use, it's time to roll it out. I'm gonna cut this in half because I'm only gonna use half of it right now, and I wanna show you the layers. Look at that. So many layers all throughout. Perfect. If you're freezing some or all of your puff pastry to use later, just roll it out to 1/8 of an inch on top of a sheet of parchment paper, cover it with more parchment, and then fold it up into thirds and wrap it. That way it'll be good to go when you're ready to use it. The temperature you've preheated your oven to will depend on the recipe you're making. If I was just baking up some puff pastry, probably 400 degrees. If I was making a Danish, 375. Just consult the recipe. For this video, I really just want to give you the basics on how to make the puff pastry and the starting point of using it. Most recipes will have you roll your puff pastry to about 1/8 of an inch. This is going to be really easy if you're using a rolling pin like this one that has bumpers. This is an 1/8 of an inch bumper, so I can't roll thinner than that. Cut your dough. I like using a pizza cutter to do that. Once your puff pastry is rolled out and you have a basic shape, you have so many options. If you do a partial score in the center and create a border, you could have delicious things inside, caramelized onions and cheese, fruits, vegetables. It's really whatever you want to make. In all of these cases, you'll want to do a brush of egg wash to give you some gloss and golden color. You could grab some cream cheese and jam and have a delicious turnover, just turning them over, sealing with egg wash. Or you could make a cream cheese frosting and have a delicious Danish, folding in the edges. No matter what you use to make with this puff pastry, it is going to be delicious. That is so much better than the store-bought. Lovely flavors and so crisp and flaky. I hope you get a chance to make this amazing recipe, and if you like my videos, hit that subscribe button and check out my French pastry playlist.